Everybody on it? Eric, everybody's on it? You're all on it? Yeah. Okay, all right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Philip Deneen, President of the Board of Education. If everyone please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Folks, in the event of an emergency, be aware of the exits, one to your left and the other one to your right, and also straight into the back there. Thank you. All right. As everyone's aware, there is a mask mandate in the school system. So at our next board meeting, for those individuals that don't have masks, if you could please bring one, it'd be greatly appreciated for our meeting. Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our Islip Pride and presentations. Dr. O'Hara.
Thank you. This past Saturday, obviously, was September 11th, 20 years since that horrific day and terrorist attacks. I'm sure everybody in the room remembers where he or she was that morning. I would ask if we could just have a moment of silence to remember all those souls lost. Thank you. Related to September 11th and remembering that day and all the souls lost, people have said that the time following 9/11 was a time of great unity in the United States. It also brought out the best in many, many people in a time of terrible tragedy and a time of fear. I think we have an example of that day bringing out the best in people right here in our own community. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize 3 of our students. Mary Carroll, can you stand up for a second, hon? Connor, can you stand up, please? And Jason. And although she's not yet one of our students, Faith, can I ask you to stand up too, your big brothers and sisters? So these 4 young people, if you drive down Main Street, there's several thousand flags planted in the ground right at the entrance to the Islip School District Administration Building on Main Street, and there's a great number of flags planted in the ground in front of Sherwood Elementary School where Connor, Jason, and Mary are students. So they worked really hard with their mom to get the flags donated, and I happened to be here Friday evening when they were out in front on Main Street planting the flags. They did a fantastic job. They put in a great deal of effort, showed tremendous patriotism, and showed compassion beyond their years, I think. So we'd like to take a moment to recognize the Carroll family. And we have a certificate from Mary. Can we take a quick photo with the board maybe and the family? Maybe if we could squeeze in right here, I don't know a good spot, but, or maybe we could walk to the back, we have a little landing there. Sure. Okay. Would you folks take a photo with us, please? We're gonna go right up there, guys, so we can get a little room.
Is there a flag in the lobby? I thought there was like a painted flag.
Oh, you need to take the photo, Glenn?
Yeah.
I didn't listen.
Oh, sure, if you want.
You know, also on the same topic of 9/11, this past Friday, I had a meet with Dr. O'Hara, the gender review, and he called me up and he said, you know, Phil, can you meet me at 8:45, 8:40 in the high school? We're going to do a 9/11 memorial service that they've never done here before in the school. And I'll just paraphrase a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. O'Hara so he can really give it the justice that was done. There was a speech when the children were in the homeroom, and then there was a 9-minute video on 9/11, and then afterwards there was an announcement when there was dismissal, you know, when they walked into the classroom. But Dr. O'Hara, would you just tell a little background on that?
Sure, thank you. Well, you know, we're together here. We did a moment of silence to remember that day. I think every student in the high school probably was not 20 years old, so obviously to them it's literally history, right? We lived through it, but they didn't. So it's a hard thing to convey what that day was like. The high school administration did an outstanding job. One of our social studies teachers did an outstanding job. The video that was selected was 8 or 9 minutes in length, and it was very powerful. But the best part of it was between second and third period, roughly 1,000 teenagers walked in total silence for 4 minutes from their second period class to their third period class, and it's just a powerful thing to be in a high school that's a buzz with activity between classes, and to be able to hear a pin drop when there's 1,000 teenagers commuting through hallways. It was very special, very moving, and I just think it's a testament to the quality people that our students are in the high school.
That is so true. It's been a long time since I've been in the high school, and I've seen students come out in the hallway and start moving around, but myself and Dr. O'Hara was standing there, and the bell goes off, and you see the doors open up, and you see the students walking out into the hallway, and then more and more and more students, and see them go about their ways, and the utter silence. It actually gave you chills. It was so impressive to see that what was done, and thank you again, Dr. O'Hara, for that. And then finally, everyone went to their classrooms, and you just saw the one person that had the longest walk, I guess, to get to their next class. But it was well done, and thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anything else on the plan presentations.
No.
Okay, all right. With that said, we're going to move on to our agenda items. Again, if there's any questions from the public on our agenda items, I'd ask that you come to the microphone, ask your question, and we'll answer it. But before we move on to the public, is there any questions from the Board of Education on our agenda items? None? Okay. Any questions from the public on our agenda items? Okay, all right. With that said, I'd like to get a motion for consent agenda items 5A through 5U.
So moved. Second.
That was Mr. Leggio and Mr. Clarine was the second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And that will carry. Carrie, is that not loading?
It's,
Oh, there it goes, okay. Okay, and those agenda items passed. The next one that was pulled from consent was 5W, the approval of the strategic evaluation, data collection, analysis, and reporting, SEDCAR contracts. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
That was Mr. Bueller. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Austin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And that motion will carry. Okay. Mrs. Fitzgerald, would you go over the personnel schedule, please?
Gladly. The A1 this evening, the appointment of a part-time E&L teacher, also a part-time computer teacher, and a special ed leave replacement. The A1, permanent recommended substitute teacher at the elementary level, in addition to per diem substitute teachers. The A4, new gymnastics coach. The A9, the appointment of district-wide coordinators. The A12, middle school team liaisons. The A13, additional duty 6-period assignments for secondary educators. Non-instructional appointments on the B1, part-time school monitor, food service workers, instructional full-time aides, and individual aides, substitutes for the school year, also substitute monitors. The B2, non-instructional, several resignations, individual monitor, instructional aide, part-time school monitor, district security, also an individual monitor that's rescinded. Finally, on the B3, we have a leave of absence for food service worker.
Great, thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to our public questions. This is the opportunity for the public to ask the Board of Education any questions. Again, if you do have any questions for the board, name, address, and please come to the microphone. But before we move on to that, I'm just going to preface something. At our last board meeting, we had a lot of questions in regards to the mask and the legalities of that. If I can, I'd appreciate if you have those questions, if you could email the board. I'm actually to reach out to Dr. O'Hara, and we'll get those questions answered for you through legal counsel, so we have time to get all those answers back to you on that. Okay, with that, is there any questions from the Board of Education on public questions?
Nicholas Torrey, 2 Gibb Lane. We had emailed a document in last week asking for the district to join a legal suit against the state regarding the mandates and the way they're coming down to the districts. I'm questioning whether the district received it and passed it along to the board, because we received no response back regarding it.
I don't remember seeing an email.
I don't remember seeing an email. I mean, we're transparent, we're not trying to.
Was that to you?
Yeah, sure.
Does the email get passed along to everybody?
Oh, we did. Oh, yeah, we did. Sorry, we did get that.
Okay, so you didn't respond to it, so that's good. That's what it is. With that being said,
Well, yeah,
how,
okay, go
was
ahead.
there any specific reason why you didn't respond to it?
Yeah, it wasn't identified who it came from. There wasn't a person that signed it.
There's not a signature on the end of it?
It says, there was an email address at the end, if I recall.
Yeah, it's not signed, it's
Signature.
Save Our Schools.
Yeah.
All right, so it's Nicholas Story, so now you have it from me.
Is that your signature? Not being a wise guy.
No, it is my signature.
Okay.
All right, that's the reason why, that's why I don't know.
Okay. With that being said, the reason for this is not to create a combative situation between, the people here on the board. We just, after seeing what's going on with the state, I'm going to read something I wrote just to kind of give you a kind of summarization of what we think and why you should join that thing. New York State has been misleading the parents and students by claiming that the mandates presented by the New York State Department of Health are law. However, New York State Department of Health's 10 NYCRR 2.6 mandate and all other subsequent mandates are guidance. They do not carry the force of law and supported by a broad statute which is granted by the legislature. The statute is broad in how the DOH can protect health, and they are using that latitude to craft additional mandates without utilizing the proper legislative process. The DOH itself declared emergency, and due to that decision, they have used emergency authorization to change their regulations without the proper due process protected underneath the law. There is currently no state of emergency. The state of emergency enacted by Governor Cuomo ended on 6/24/2021 and was not renewed. Governor Hochul directed the DOH to craft the emergency mandates outside of the formal signed declaration of a public health state of emergency. Therefore, the governor and the DOH are acting outside their scope of authority and have given themselves the power to renew this indefinitely every 90 days. Since they have granted themselves full power, they have consequently stripped all other elected officials of their power. They, in essence, have the power of an executive order and a state of emergency less challenging court of law. Rule by mandates gives unelected officials supreme power, which means that we as residents and you as the Board of Education do not have the ability to appeal or choose which is best for our children if left unchallenged. While our New York State elected and appointed public servants attempt to make a power grab, we need to remind them that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, civil rights are still in effect and supersede all New York State laws and mandates. If left unchecked, and once compliance is established, the DOH mandates will be used to impose more requirements that will lead to the use of school grounds for on-site testing or testing pods, on-site vaccination pods, mandatory student vaccination, and the potential of New York State Senate Bill S4244C, if passed, which permits a child who is at least 14 years of age to have administered to himself or herself certain immunizations required or recommended by law. To date, the DOH has not provided infection or hospitalization metrics nor benchmarks to determine where their mandates may be lifted. They leave the public and you as the BOA with no known exit strategy. We cannot continue to blindly follow DOH and not protect the autonomy of this district. It is imperative that you as the BOE perform your due diligence required under New York State education law and the Islip Union Free School District public policy, and accept a free consultation offered under Hamburger, Maxon, Yaffe, and Martingale LLP. In closing, I want to inform you that as the BOE, if you act in violations of our rights, that you can be held personally liable under Federal Code Title 18 U.S.C. 242, Deprivation of Rights under color of law. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Tracy Zizza, 474 Smith Avenue. This question is for the board. I have sent a few emails to the board, and in response, the response comes from Dr. O'Hara. I mean, no disrespect to Dr. O'Hara, because I enjoy corresponding with you sometimes. However,
Not all the time?
What's that?
Not all the time?
All the time.
Okay.
However, I would like to correspond with our board, and I would like to hear from our board. And I am speaking on behalf of the parents that I am here with tonight, that collectively as a group, we do not feel seen and heard by our board. We feel that at this point, it's very obvious whenever we ask a question, the board looks to Dr. O'Hara, and then Dr. O'Hara answers us. But we would like to hear from our board. So first, my question is there did you get the emails that I had sent?
Any of the emails that are forwarded to the Board of Education, the standard practice has always been, we don't individually speak, we speak collectively as a group. So when any of that information comes back, what we'll do is the district clerk will reply back to you that the email has been received. And then again, also, we always keep Dr. O'Hara in the loop as well, and that this information will be shared with Dr. O'Hara. I'll speak to Dr. O'Hara, we'll get the information, any of the questions out to you. Dr. O'Hara will put it out, and that's been the practice, and Dr. O'Hara will send it back out to you. It's not that we're not responding back to you, but we don't have individual side,
Okay, thank you, with all due respect. And by the way, can everybody here hear the board? So would it be okay if we give you the microphone, because with the mask on, and it's really hard to
Sure.
hear, so would that be okay?
I can speak louder, that's not a problem, I can speak
Okay,
louder.
thank you, because I was struggling to, I think.
Okay, no,
Okay, so, but my point is that we would like to hear from the board. When I addressed Dr. O'Hara, it would be weird if you answered for him, just like it seems just out of context for us to ask you a question and for Dr. O'Hara to answer. It seems like there's like a
well,
little
see,
bit of a conflict of
maybe
interest.
there was also the confusion there, because it's always been, if there's any questions, forward them over to the Board of Education, and then it's always shared with Dr. O'Hara. So if you have something that you're asking the boards,
Okay, so I think that where the line is drawn here is that Dr. O'Hara, as the superintendent, works for you, the board, who works for the public. So if the public is asking you a question and essentially your employee is answering, that's a complete conflict all around. So, do you see where the conflict is there?
No,
I don't see the conflict.
I don't see it, no, because the communications come to the Board of Education. The superintendent needs to be in the loop on this. So, and then the communication goes back out to you in concert with us, so.
Do you think that the board is not, just for clarification, do you think the board is not reading your communications?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I have
We
no
are.
idea
Yeah,
because
we
I
are.
sent it to them and then you answered me. So
No,
I
ours
didn't
go out. I
notice.
mean, I see yours, you're in a tagline, please give me 2 days to get back to me, because I need 2 days. So I do read your emails.
Yeah, great.
So,
Yeah.
and we reply back right away, and I don't even wait 2 days.
It might help if I tell you that every email that comes to Ms. Carr or to me, if it's for the board, gets forwarded to all 7 board members. I said it may help if I explain that every email that comes to me, that's addressed to the board, or comes to Ms. Carr, that's addressed to the board, gets forwarded to all 7 board members. The last correspondence I sent back to you, if I remember correctly, I explained that every board member has seen those 8 questions, certainly the 4 people that were present that evening, and then it was forwarded to all 7, and everybody on the board read that response and was aware of what was being communicated back out. So I could see why you're asking these questions, but this is not a Board of Education that's not participating.
Okay, but with all due respect, from the public's point of view, if we are asking the board and we're not hearing from the board, and every time we ask the board a question, they look to you, it doesn't seem like the board is interacting with us. And Mr. Deneen, I don't mean any disrespect,
No, I
I'm just
understand.
trying to be clear on that.
Sure, you know,
Okay? What was my next question? Oh, my next question is, Mr. Torrey was just talking about potentially seeking second counsel. I would like to ask the board, for the members that are present here tonight, would you consider seeking second counsel for the items that he was discussing?
so how the policy works, when you're asking that right now as board president, you know, that's a question that will be proposed to legal counsel.
We're asking the board.
And then I'm speaking for the board right now.
What do you have to do?
I am, right now, that question, that will all go towards legal counsel. And that,
Legal counsel is
Well-
Okay.
straighten up.
Excuse me for 1 second. So,
you're citing all these case laws, which is great. And I'm not refuting any of them, because I'm not a lawyer right now. So I need this to be, you know, vetted and have all these questions asked, and that's why we have legal counsel on retainer. That's why the superintendent is here, you know, so
Mr.
this is,
Deneen, but this is the point, is that we're requesting that you seek second counsel. This counsel is serving the school district with Dr. O'Hara. We're asking for you to seek a second source that is outside of that. So if you get guidance from this counsel, I'm sure he's going to guide you to follow what they're, I mean, right? Doesn't that sound like it might be the case? I mean, that's what we're asking, so.
Sure, go ahead. I think he has a comment.
Please,
no.
it's a free consultation from that firm. There's no harm and no foul in you seeking that consultation. This shouldn't even be a question. This is something that's protecting the school, protecting us, and protecting you by entering into that suit. At least the question of entering into that consultation, it should be an absolute yes, because otherwise it's a dereliction of duty by you. You're here to protect us. If you don't go and
Mike
do
has a
that, it's a dereliction of
Yeah,
duty.
so you're gonna have to use the mic.
No.
You heard him.
Mike
You
has-
heard him.
No, sorry.
No,
Hey,
no,
hang on a
hey,
second.
Well,
Hey,
please.
that was a
see,
misunderstanding. Let me clarify. No, you don't have to use the mic. Let me just clarify. Just so you guys know. Mr. Classy, our attorney's name is Michael. I said to him, Mike wants to respond. He thought I said, ask him to use the mic. Just an honest mistake, okay?
But here's the other thing, you know, I know everyone is passionate and emotional.
Tensions are high.
So, you know, we're all here to work together, so,
I get that. And when we ask you as a board to respond as the board, and you only have one answer coming from him and one lawyer,
No.
we're asking you as the public to just seek another opinion. That's
Okay,
all.
Look, I'm
Is that a
gonna,
lot?
No,
it's not a
now-
lot, but I'm gonna, Mr. McCalvin will comment, but I want the public to know that this is not the first time this request has come to us to seek other, and. No, no, you didn't let me finish. What I wanted to explain is that I did get legal counsel memos from other law firms, and we did read them. So we did honor that request. Regarding this question tonight, we have not yet. But regarding past requests, we have, and I'd like to make sure that that's clear. Okay.
So what was the answer? Sorry, I just sat down. He was gonna respond.
Right.
So the school districts of Locust Valley and Massapequa have filed suit in Albany Supreme Court. You have to file suit in Albany Supreme Court because when you're suing the state or a state entity, including the governor of the state of New York, that's the venue. They have brought suit similar to what the first speaker had talked about. Their basis of the case is that essentially that the executive did not have the authority to issue that particular regulation regarding the mask wearing in schools, and has asked the court to lift that mandate due to the fact that they believe the legislature, the assembly, the state senate, and ultimately a law should be signed by the governor if there is indeed going to be a mask mandate. A decision on that case will ultimately affect every school district in this county, frankly in this state, irregardless of whether or not a school district is part of that lawsuit. So if that mandate gets lifted, really it gets lifted for all districts, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, please.
And if I may, that would presumably lead back to local control.
Hi, sorry, Lady Rogacki, 257 Grant Avenue. Wouldn't it be beneficial if more districts got involved than just the two? I understand that the outcome of them two would trickle down, but if more districts stood up for what is right, or what they believe is right, or, tried to stick up for the parents, based on all the laws and the rules, which were explained. So wouldn't it be better if more than just two joined in that? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just saying,
Yeah. Wouldn't necessarily agree with that, no.
you wouldn't necessarily agree.
Would it hurt?
Yeah, would it hurt? No, it wouldn't hurt.
I mean, realistically, show these numbers. I mean,
so we'll look into that. So this is the,
that's yes, that's the same firms that represent the other.
sure, yeah, so, yeah, we'll look into this,
That's all. That's what we're asking.
That's all.
Realistically, I mean, listen, if you don't, right, and this is allowed to go on, the autonomy of this district is going to be every district, and you're not going to be able to make decisions that are necessarily right here that might be different from someplace else. And anything the Department of Health goes out from this point forward, whether it's a range act for cure of cancer or anything else that's they feel that's necessary, we have no way of fighting it unless you guys stand up.
sure.
You guys here have to direct the state that we're done with this. And I understand the massive one, but the things that are coming down the line after this aren't acceptable by any means. And you see here is 1/10 of what's going to happen if these vaccine mandates come down to the kids. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
because it's not going to be acceptable. And what's happened already, there's already case law, there's already precedent set federally with the CDC against the, the rent auditorium. So it's at the same case law federally that's here. It's advantageous for you guys to jump on, because we set precedent on the state level that the same thing is happening at the federal, which is better for everybody if we get together now and do it now. And it helps everybody else. And it's a smart thing to do, it's right. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Since I'm standing, you're going to hate this question, but I have to because I can't resist. Last meeting I was at, it was the morning of, I believe, is when the mandate came out from the new governor. And that meeting, you guys weren't wearing a mask sitting down, and now you are. Can you tell me what changed from the last meeting till now? It was the same rule that day as it is today, so I'm wondering what has changed.
Well, if I remember, so you're talking about the 24th?
Yes.
Yeah, so the 24th, she made her announcement, but it wasn't until the 27th when it became the mandate.
Okay, that's my answer, I guess, then. That's why you weren't wearing it sitting last time.
Yeah, look, I mean, people have tried to ask this question a couple of times of us. If you think, I mean, people have literally, somebody said political theater. It's not how we operate, but
Yeah, that was,
I can't sway you from that opinion. I could just tell you that we act with students first, pure intentions, the best effort. We're trying to make this the best school district we can make it. We're trying to keep everybody safe. Obviously, there's differences of opinion. I acknowledge that. We're doing everything we can to listen to people and incorporate your thoughts. Sometimes, you know, our legal counsel and our decisions won't align with everything that you agree with, but it's not because we're not listening. I'm speaking for myself. You know, you don't want me to speak for the board, so I'm just gonna speak for myself. But, you know, I hope you know that I didn't go into this field 30 years ago so that I could have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, well, no one
Totally
anticipated-
different,
Obviously, no one anticipated.
totally different goals.
The reason that, you know, the political theater statement was made last time is because of the mask on, mask off, wearing it standing, taking off, sit down, all that. And you're saying that was because it was the 24th, and then now the 27th came around. Just literally, I don't know, what was it, half hour, 45 minutes ago, staff of yours was standing there, all maskless, having a conversation, but as soon as the doors open, guess what? They put their mask on. That's what political theater means.
You're talking about the board, or you're
I'm
talking
talking
about?
right now
Yeah.
in this school.
So, listen, the
So,
best.
you know, rules for thee and not, you know,
Yeah.
not for me, like, I don't understand.
Well, no, actually, it's not rules for thee and not for me. In that example, it's that if you have a picture of who they were, you give me the picture and I'll correct it.
I absolutely do.
No, okay,
just so
good.
you know.
So
But
if-
I mean, like, I don't
if-
wanna, I'm not here to get anybody
I
fired.
understand that,
I'm
but
just, that's where the political theater came into play.
I
That's what I'm
understand,
trying to explain.
but there's a difference, in my opinion, okay? If an employee doesn't follow a rule, then I need to correct it when I become aware of it, okay? I don't know who the employee is. I don't know if for that employee it's political theater. Likely, the employee put the mask on because he thought, or she thought, that somebody's boss was walking out the door, right? So is that an employee who might try to get away with something when nobody's looking, or is it political theater? I don't know. What I'd like you to understand is there's 600 employees. There will be imperfections, there will be honest mistakes, and there will be some people who have the same opinion you have and will try to get away with it if they're not being watched. That's a management challenge. We have a small number of administrators and 600 employees. We're outnumbered, so we can't be everywhere there's an employee at every minute of the day. It doesn't mean that your administration or your board is up to no good if you catch an employee that made a decision.
I didn't say it's no good. It's just that
Yeah.
we all know that, you know, right now this is, from what it was from last time I saw you guys, it's a complete excessive switch, and you're gonna tell me 3 days made a difference? It didn't. But I understand you have
Well,
to
the
do what,
rules-
you know, the rules
The
are.
rules make a difference, right? The rules make a difference. So, I mean, you know, I don't know, it's not a perfect analogy, but there could be some lobbying that changes the speed limit. So if the speed limit was reduced because there were accidents or something happened in the past, I can't drive down the street and say it's political theater. It was 55 miles an hour yesterday, now it's 45. The rule changed for a reason, so we just follow the
Yeah,
rule.
but that rule went through a legislative process.
It may have.
This is just someone reading.
You know, can I tell you something?
That was my
I-
next question.
I answered your question, so.
I'll answer your question. I think that's a fair point, right? And the best I could say to people is, related to what I said earlier about second and third legal opinions, right? Regarding the mask mandate, I've now read legal memos from 3 law firms. They've all given the same counsel. 2 of them do not work for this Board of Education and are not this gentleman. So I'm a superintendent of schools. I have an education in a certain area. They're attorneys. They have another type of education. I would be foolish to ignore the legal counsel of, first of all, our counsel, but then to pile on top of that 2 other law firms, right? So what I'd like you people to know, or what I'd like to say in that regard is, I can't argue with you anymore about it's legal or it's not. It's a mandate doesn't carry the force of law. It does. I'm not qualified to have that debate, right? So that's why we have the people that have that education and have that experience and have that training.
Well, I think we need to look at new people because
But I
we
just
live in a democracy.
But I just said to you, I looked with 2 other people. How many do you want me to go to?
Well, what's the, I mean, I don't know how much people know. There's only 3 law firms that handle education law now.
I think there's more, but
For the most part, there's 3 to handle 99%.
do you know the names of them?
It's, Smith, it's like, there's a small guy and then there's, I forget the
Yeah, I could think of at least, I could think of at least 5 off the top of my head, but no, but look, I could think of 5 off the top of my head, but my point is I went to 3 out of 5. Where do you want me to keep going with this?
You're looking at educational law terms, and I understand why you're doing that, I get that. But in the grand scheme of things, we're not talking about educational law right now, we're talking about constitutional law. Civil liberties. These are two entirely different things.
Yeah.
And that's, you refer, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, I
Okay.
understand that, but you're also going to an educational law term.
So-
That's not what we're dealing with.
Okay, then this is my request of everybody here, because I'm really trying to work hard to cooperate with everybody, right? I'm just gonna ask, like, we're not the lawyers, so we have our advice now, so Mr. Deneen, on behalf of the board, has said that they'll investigate this opportunity to have this consultation with Hamburger and whatever the rest of the name of the law firm is, right? So that's the next step now, and I think that that's a sign of the respect the board has for the community. So I would, right, so I would appreciate, and I'm not telling anybody what to do, I'm just telling you what I think is productive and what I think is not, to spend our time on the mandate versus it's not is no longer fruitful, because like we've passed that now, or it's an impasse, and so that's gotta go to a different place now. You know, and then this other place the board has made a commitment now to investigate that. And in 2 weeks, there's another board meeting, and if the board desires, they can share the results of that consultation.
Now, one question, and then I'll let it go. If in your research, once you contact them, would you be privy to a emergency executive session to try to push it along, so you can sit down and have that consultation before we get to the next board?
I mean, I can't speak, to everyone's schedule. I can't answer that question. I can tell you right now, we're gonna look into this for you, and then,
The reason I'm asking is because obviously this has to be done in the executive session, and I'd like to have it done before we get into our next board.
yeah, well, I can't make that guarantee. I'm being honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you and say, yes, we're gonna get it done, and then we don't, and then you say you didn't do it. So you please have to appreciate that. There's a lot of board members on here, everyone's schedules. I mean, we put a lot of hours in here, it's a lot. So, I mean, but I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it isn't, and that's why it's so important. But, also too, I can't speak for everyone and make a commitment because it would be unfair. I'm not gonna overpromise and underdeliver. I never will. So I'm just gonna be honest with you. And we're not sitting on it, but please, I wouldn't put someone on the spot and say, I need you to get back at this, it wouldn't be fair and it wouldn't be right.
I understand that. I just feel like, from the last board meeting until now, we've had a lot of correspondence, and things that are said are then returned in an email that says like, oh, we couldn't get to it, or there wasn't.
I don't know, the 8 questions that I was not there for got back to you pretty quick.
We asked for an executive, we asked for an emergency.
We don't do executive, we don't do side with certain, with a group of people, a separate board meeting for everyone. That's not how we operate.
Okay, I'm not asking for that right now, but
In this
in
application,
this application, all I'm saying is some of our trusts may not be there, but we're not asking you right now on the spot to say that. And by the way, before, when I asked the question, would you see, first I started with saying that when I asked the board, when I addressed the board and asked the board a question, when anyone does, the board looks to Dr. O'Hara, who looks to council. And that is exactly what happened here tonight with that question. You did exactly that. We want to know, you are our board member,
Right,
we trust you.
right.
So you make the decisions and talk to the board instead of let them look that way.
Look, you're asking me to everyone get their schedule out. I haven't even spoken to these people yet, and they're done.
We're asking you guys to answer the question.
So here's the board policy, and maybe we'll get that all out there. Actually, at this board meeting, the questions that you're asking, I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Education.
correct.
So nobody else to answer the question.
That's not how it works.
Okay, so I think that we're just saying that, like, so yeah, I mean, I don't need to be confrontational at all.
I understand that.
You heard clear, more definitive, clear answers, so when we leave, there's nothing like left, like, in translation, where we could, like, maybe go one way or the other.
No.
Just a definitive answer. So,
I think past practice has to be adjusted to the current situation. You guys are going off how things used to work. This is pretty serious.
This is different.
You guys probably never had to deal with this ever.
No.
Wait, so we need different things to happen.
Like you said, we'll follow up on this.
think this gentleman might have been there.
Quick, I'm gonna keep it basic. Mike Tierney, 74 Dartmouth Street. You know, you're our elected officials, you're our government. I'm a government teacher, so I look at you guys as my direct line to my life and my 4 kids' lives. 4 kids in 3 different schools in your district, and I'm just asking, when is this gonna end? You know, a year ago, we started this process over a year ago, and my kids have suffered irreparable damage between teachers having different mandates with masks, getting disciplined for them, education loss. My son, his teacher said, you want a mask break, you gotta step outside. So he's not able to sit in the room if he has to take a break.
Is that current or?
Current right now. Another one saying you can take a mask break, but only below the
Can you
nose.
tell me which school?
In the high school, both are high school. You know, the window open during a snowstorm while she's taking a test. She said, my test was soaking wet. I mean, this is out of control. And what happens when we feel like we don't have a voice? And I'm looking at my board members specifically. You represent me. I elected you. When does this end? Who knows? Does anyone talk to the state and say, is there a benchmark? Because right now we have a death rate in Suffolk County of 0.0001%. We have 95% people vaccinated, 88% over 12. Those are CDC numbers. When are the goalposts going to stop moving so our kids
95% in Islip?
No, in Suffolk County.
Because I saw the stats for Islip, it's only 59%.
I don't know. I know Suffolk County. I didn't do that much research.
Well,
I'm
but
telling you right now
I
that
can tell
you
you,
have-
I can tell you, I saw it in Newsday, it's 59% for Islip vaccination.
I have a 15 and 14-year-old who will literally wear a hazmat suit if you tell them they can play sports and go to school. They're
I
in
was just asking,
tears.
she said 95%, so that's why I was wondering.
They're in tears. They sneeze. They're afraid they're going to shut down the sport. That's what we have now. So you guys as professionals, elected officials, have to ask yourself, what are we going to do to lead? Because if you're going to lead, you're going to be alone. You have to lead alone. You can't lead in a group. You're now a follower. And I think people in this district are asking, like, enough. We need answers. We need specific guidelines of when this is going to end. What do we have to do to end it? Because obviously after a year and a half, it hasn't worked. And I know I've given up a lot of my rights and liberties and privacy to get it fixed, and it didn't work. So I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, you had your chance. We need those back. We have amendments, and I'm protected by them above everything else. And I'm not telling people to, not wear, you can't wear a mask, you can't do, choice. Choose your life. I understand. We all take risks. But you guys have to start delivering us with some absolute answers of, this person is going to tell us where. You're the superintendent, you talk to the Department of Education, you know what they're passing along. And right now, I think everyone here is like, we don't know. We didn't even know going into school what's going to happen. That is unacceptable. For me as a citizen, that's unacceptable. As a teacher, that's unacceptable. I have to know answers. So I'm asking you guys to really take a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, when does it end? What do we need to do? And if we want to be the district out in front who could expose ourselves to getting hurt by the state, I'm willing to put that fight up now. I know I don't speak for everybody, but I know I'm at the point where I'm like, I've had enough. Governor, Department of Education, Department of Health, who do not have these rights. It's in the New York State Constitution. I've read it. Answer us. You're not elected officials. You're appointed. I know it's rhetorical, but I'm asking you guys. Of course. Is that important?
I just want to know, do you have, I'm a teacher, do
Yeah.
you have to wear a mask?
As per the schools in the district, I'm an employee, I wear a mask.
And where?
As where I work, I follow the rules as an employee. Okay?
See?
Today, my students eat lunch in my classroom, and every other row now has to wear a mask.
Okay?
Meltdowns, okay? This is our reality.
That's not true.
And I
All right,
No, it's not, it's a bad procedure, so we want to shut it down.
listen to all of you.
I'm working on it.
well,
They spoke from their seats.
yeah.
Okay,
Look,
let's just try,
no,
guys,
please,
we're
please.
doing well, let's
Yes,
just get
please,
it back
folks.
under control, we'll go one at a time.
I'm just asking you guys to evaluate this and think about it. And take an honest reflection about what are you willing to pay, what costs are you willing to give in, and are you representing the constituency that elected you as a whole, not as individuals. I'm speaking as an individual. That's what I'm asking you. Okay?
Thank you.
Jackie McEnany, 128 South Bay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk to you. I didn't know we weren't allowed to talk to each other. I'm Jackie. And I appreciate all of this passion, and I appreciate you coming to the board and asking for answers, because I too am looking for answers. But I feel like my focus is a little different, because my students are wearing masks. I'm wearing a mask all day. Is it perfect? No, we try. What I'm asking is for us to come together as a community and ask for more education, more curriculum. Why aren't they in small groups just because they have masks on? Why aren't they critically thinking? Maybe they are, but I don't see programs done with fidelity. Readers, writers workshop, the science program. I brought this up a while ago. I've written to the board, they passed it to Dr. Semmel, and she gave me an answer. What I'm asking is for us to come together as a community, and I'm asking the board, why aren't the standards higher? Where is the Danielson rubric followed in any classroom? The teachers are lovely, they're amazing, but I'm just asking for a little more rigor, a little more for my growing 2022 student, 2021 children. Why is there mandates on that? And that's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for a little more for our students.
Then we're asking the same thing.
I understand. I'm just saying, I want to focus on curriculum.
We're never going to get here.
My name is Tamara Bajrami. I live on Moody Avenue. So back in June, I'll direct this question to you, Mr. Demine, because it's for the Board of Ed. Back in June, you all signed a letter. I'm sorry. So back in June, the whole board signed a letter to the governor, Cuomo at the time, asking him to relinquish control to the district level. You guys all signed it. Obviously, you guys were open to that. In August, Dr. O'Hara sends a message and says there's a mandate from the new governor. I'd like to know what happened in between that time that you guys, because you guys didn't even wear masks in summer school. What was the COVID counts then? So why were you for it in June and now August you're against it?
The letter that was written back out in that time was also to ask, what is the metrics? At what point in time, when the governor was still continuing the mask requirements, what is going to be the threshold? That's my question.
I think everyone's asking.
So, and that was what the letter was out. So is it 70% vaccination rate? Is it 80% vaccination rate? Is it something in the hospitals where you get to a point where it's so low? That's my question. Because at what point in time do you not have to wear the masks?
I think that's everyone's question.
Look, I know there's two sides to it. Some people are pro-vax, some people are not vax, and that's everyone's prerogative. So,
That's why we're in America.
right, so it's true.
I'm pro-Constitution because I took an oath.
Right.
And I swear by it every single day.
But
If
you
read
know,
the
so there's
Constitution,
probably
you
going to be.
understand that more power in government is less liberty in the people. More liberty in the people is less power in the government, and that is what we need. These are our children. I am pleading with the board right now, seek second counsel. Dr. O'Hara, no disrespect. Leave him and this attorney out of it. You guys need to fight for the Board of Ed, not Dr. O'Hara and not for this guy. You need to fight for us and our children. It's parents' choice. Parents' choice. I didn't lay down in bed with you. You have no choice to tell me what I'm doing with my child. This is my child. You and I, all of us know what's coming down the pipeline. The vaccines are coming down the pipeline. The Board of Ed got an email about pods coming on site. This is insane. And the superintendents have a right to say if they can go on the grounds or not? He doesn't have a medical license. Who the hell do you think is going to be shooting up my kid? It's not happening. You guys need to really think about this long and hard. This is our future. These are our children. They're not even being taught the Constitution. My child, 8 years old, first day of school, witnessed the police taking a report because Dr. O'Hara, the first day of school, very strong kids stood up for their rights. You, I can't even say with all due respect, were a snake to the news and said that they're going to be put into an alternative room. You told me directly at the last board meeting my child would be put in an isolation room. Last Thursday when she went to Sherwood, your nurse told me my child was going to be put in an isolation room. Not my child. Don't tell me what to do. Not my child. The board, we elect you, we expect more of you, and I understand this is a grueling job. This is a grueling job. I get it. I do respect you, and Mr. Leggio, thank you for emailing me back. There's a few others that contacted me back. I appreciate that. You guys work for us. We don't work for you. He works for you. Remember why you got into this position. It was about the children and the parents and doing right by us. That's all we're asking.
I want to thank you first for seeking that second counsel. We all do really appreciate that. I just have two simple questions. One to the Board of Ed. Are you all aware that children who have exemptions are being discriminated against in the classrooms, being segregated from other students based on their disability? Are you aware of that?
I don't believe that it's happening.
It happened to my daughter this morning. And it happens to my children with their exemptions every day.
So no, you're not aware.
Well, the buses also. Yes.
I haven't heard of this.
Okay, so now that you are aware, I'm glad that you're now aware. Now that you are aware.
Where is this at? How?
What's this?
Sherwood.
What's the discrimination?
Yeah, what's
Discrimination? They're being separated. They can't be as close to their peers. They're being made to feel different.
I'm sorry.
Young children are feeling that there's something wrong with them based on their disability.
Yeah,
So you're not aware. Well, I'm glad that you are aware now.
Listen,
my second question is, now that you are aware, do you agree with that?
It's not happening.
No, you wouldn't want children to be segregated, no.
I'm sorry. It's just necessary to make a correction because what you're saying is just not accurate. I spent the entire day today in Sherwood Elementary School. I visited classrooms. I saw the students that had mask exemptions. They were not in a separate location.
Not a separate location, no. And I do want to say.
Let me finish, please. And they were not separated from their class. In fact, there's one elementary classroom I was in today. There's 2 students that have a mask exemption. They were at the head of a 6-foot table, and they were surrounded by desks of other students. So I don't know what claim of discrimination or segregation you could be making. It's just not the fact, and that needs to be clearly stated.
Okay, well, I will say, I think there are wonderful, wonderful teachers in our district who are all doing the best that they can, and I think everybody is working hard, but when I tell you it is coming from the mouths of children, hey mom, hey, do you know this is happening? We're different. We're not allowed to sit as close to our friends.
That's correct. That's correct.
So you're saying that's correct?
That's correct. They are 6 feet from the nearest person. The other students are allowed to be 3 feet.
Exactly.
Right. So
how do you think that makes
a
them
difference
feel?
of 3 feet is not discrimination. It's part of the guidance from the health department.
Okay, when I'm just letting you know, young children realize that, hey, I can be this far, but I'm not.
Yes.
That is discriminating based on a disability.
No, it's designed to protect the health and safety of everybody who's in the school building, and that's the way that it has to be.
Well, you know what, with all due respect, I'm not sure if you are aware what it does to a child's self-esteem and how it affects them emotionally. And you don't know the long-term effects of that, to know that going through in school, I'm different.
I can tell you that I have personally observed the students with a mask exemption participating in their classes with no observable difference. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. O'Hara. Again, that question was for the Board of Education. I wanted to know if each of the board members were aware that children are being discriminated against medically based on their disability.
We don't go down and ask each question. No.
That's fine,
We-
I just
we-
wanted
no,
to
we-
make sure that
you brought it to our
everybody was
attention,
aware
I'm
that
not aware
it
of
is
it.
happening to children, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not gonna come to that, because, you know, being at these meetings is very intimidating, and there are a lot of people in this community that feel differently, and there are a lot of people that feel the same. But it gets intimidating coming, there are so many people who don't wanna come because it gets intimidating. And I can tell you that my child is in a room that has a child with a mask exemption, and I completely respect that. But my child has to quarantine if they are within 6 feet of that child, and I just can't have that. I can't have my child quarantined. So, yes, your kids have rights, but so do mine.
But what if your child has to quarantine because of one of the other kids? It only matters
No,
because
but if
of
it's
that kid?
Just to correct that, just to correct the, just to correct that assumption, guys, the folks, if students that are masked are within 3 feet of each other, they do not have to quarantine. When there's an unmasked person, anybody who's within 6 feet would have to quarantine if that unmasked person becomes a positive case.
And that's according to
Only if
CDC
that
guidelines?
person becomes a positive case.
Is that CDC guidelines?
But if a person with a mask becomes positive and the people within 3 feet are masked, the positive case obviously has to isolate. The other children that are masked do not have to quarantine.
So that's why we're keeping the children with, I'm not gonna call them unmasked, they have medical exemption.
That's fine, whatever term you like, we're following the
So they're
guidance.
6 feet away, then nobody has to quarantine, correct?
If the unmasked child becomes a positive case, that person has to isolate, but we
But
hope,
nobody else does.
I can't say across the board because it depends, we have to do contact tracing, but that's the reasoning behind it, yes.
Is that CDC guideline?
I forget if it's New York State Department of Health or CDC, I can't recall.
So back to my original statement, this is the problem. We're all over the place and now we're going to
And
change.
I don't want my
It
child
changes.
quarantine either, but I also want my child to be able to go to school and get the same education as everybody else wants in here. We all love our kids, we all want the best for our kids, and what's best for your kid isn't what's best for mine.
That's exactly what I'm saying. My child would have to quarantine.
No, he's just saying that they wouldn't.
No, excuse me, let me try to clarify again.
In that 3 feet, I'm talking
But
about.
if we're outside at recess,
I'll say, let it clear, because you said it with the mask. you
listen,
got it.
and on the soccer field, it's fine.
Yes.
I'm gonna make it recess, there's no logic on
Yeah,
it.
well, there is a little bit of logic behind it, whether it's right or not, I can't tell you that, but if they're outside,
So when my child has a medical exemption, both of my children do, everybody here knows it, because it was blasted on Facebook today. But that's not here nor there. So when I drive by Sherwood in the afternoon.
I don't know your
all the
what is your
children
name?
are literally
I
piled on
I
top
don't
of
know
each
her
other,
I don't know.
6 inches apart.
don't know who she is.
I'm sorry, your name?
How does that make any sense?
I think this is a misunderstanding. Do you mind if I just stand up real quick? Dr. Harry, you had said if you're masked, you do not have to quarantine.
If,
I'm asking you.
okay, let's start with a blanket, okay? If everybody in the classroom is masked,
Yep.
and they're a minimum of 3 feet apart, if there's a positive case in the class, nobody has to quarantine.
Just a kid, I got that.
Right, the one child has to isolate.
Okay.
Right? If there's unmasked people in the room, then you have to go to the definition of a close contact, which is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes cumulative.
Even if you're wearing a mask.
If I'm wearing a mask and you're not, yes.
So you have to quarantine wearing a mask.
If I'm within 6
Within
feet
6
of you and you're positive, yes.
Okay.
That's
I cleared it
the,
up. I thought this was.
that's the dilemma.
And I'm sorry, and I don't agree, like, I don't want my kids to be masked either, that's not the point. I just don't want my kids to be quarantined. I'm trying to give you the other side of the coin here, like, I get it, I get that you have a legitimate. But I don't necessarily agree.
The problem is these people can coordinate. You know, they don't consider that there's another.
Right, exactly. All right, okay, all right, you know, folks, we're starting to get on a lot of sides, so let's,
It's basically the same thing we talked about before, that's all. Listen, I understand, we all respect each other, and realistically, the bottom line is, we're fighting the same fight. We went over this already, we talked about it, they're gonna see what they can do, they're gonna consult with the other attorney, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, that's where we are now. Obviously, the district hasn't gotten any metrics from the state, giving us anything behind these rules. They're just rules that were thrown out there based upon something the CDC said. No documentation or any metrics were ever given to the state. Nothing from the state was ever given to them. Nothing from them is ever given to us. There's no documentation. So until this gets challenged in the court of law, we're stuck here. Period.
Did they get back to Dolan with these types of things?
No.
Okay, we're gonna, folks, I appreciate all the dialogue that we're having, and I think we've really driven home this point right now, and I think it's well understood. So we'll entertain another question, and then maybe we'll move on to some other questions for the board.
Hi, I'm Wendy, Andrea, 19 Cloverwood Place. I have 3 kids. I have a senior, a sophomore. I have a senior, a sophomore, and a 6th grader. So I'm a nurse at Southside Hospital. I worked through the pandemic, so I have a different perspective. I want to say that I am very supportive of the safety measures you're putting in place. I see firsthand right now, today, what's happening in the hospital and how many of my kids in this school district every day are coming back positive. I'm concerned about people who are not vaccinated, whether their kids getting sick. I'm concerned about it going home to my vaccinated mother-in-law because vaccinated people are getting sick. I respect that this is temporary and this is an unprecedented situation. I don't like wearing the mask all day in the hospital. I don't like having my 6th grader do it either. I don't like having my senior. They're supposed to be enjoying this, but guess what? My kids don't care because I pass on to them that this is temporary and we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing it to protect our community. We're doing it to protect our grandparents. We're doing it to protect the kids, which, by the way, we have kids in our hospital today very sick. We have young people dying. We have older people dying. We have vaccinated people dying. So my concern here is that there's a big group of them, and everybody has their right to their opinion, and just being respectful about it. They don't represent the whole majority here because a lot of us do appreciate these safety measures. So as far as getting a second counsel, that's fine if you do that, but just know that anything that goes for legality suits should be a majority, not just a minority. And the other thing I wanted to say, my concern with my kids, my youngest daughter is the only one who's not vaccinated. I'm concerned about the kids that are in her class that can get sick. So the things that you guys are just talking about, they're 6 feet away. So every day one of my kids is coming home, this one's positive, that one's positive. I want to make sure that my kids are being protected by the kids who aren't masked, being 6 feet apart. My daughter's partner in science lab today does not have an exemption and wears a mask around his neck the whole time, and nothing is said to him. I did speak to Dr. Martin about this. So some of us are supportive of these safety measures. I respect everybody's decision to choose, but right now I think what the guidelines are, we have to respect because they're temporary. It's unprecedented, it's going to be over soon, and that's it. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Joe from 79 Nassau and Islip. So I actually just want to refocus things a little bit, more on the lines of what Nick was pointing out. So really what I want to do is talk to the board about an alarming pattern that we're starting to see develop, and I know that you guys are starting to see it as well, okay? What we're starting to see is that your scope of powers are condensing and getting smaller and smaller, and it's not just with this mandate. This is like the next iteration on what you're experiencing. I'm sure you're experiencing it, what you can and cannot do, and what liberties you can take in your decisions. So, I mean, I can speak from like my experience in this process and coming to that realization, realizing that the school plan that you guys voted on was not really upheld, and that's just a case in point. That the first day my son, and just to back up a little bit, we're respecting his desire. His desire was to go to school, but he didn't want to go under the conditions of being masked. But that's a side note, okay? That's just where this plays out. The point is that he went to isolation the first day and then was threatened with suspension. And when we spoke about it that evening, he brought up the point that that's not in the school plan, so I would like to return and discuss that with them, okay? And so when he returned, he was then confronted with out-of-school suspension, which is pretty severe, if you ask me. And so when I spoke with the principal on the phone, because I asked, why is my son being denied entry into the school? His response was, like we told him that he was going to be suspended. And so what we were trying to bring in front of him is that my son has the school plan printed out because he wants to discuss with you why that's not part of this plan. Because specifically, you have in there, if a student resists, wearing a mask, he goes to an isolation room, right? This is what you've voted on. You decided this is how you wanted to see the school open up and go forward. But that's not what the administration is respecting, okay? And what the administration is seeing also is seeing a narrowing scope of your powers. That's why they're not respecting it. So I just want to bring up that this is actually a big problem, okay? And I can't understand why you want to be on the board where more and more of your authority is taken away, because this is all void. This discussion between you and I is all void if you have no power, if you have no authority in the situation. We're just talking over a kitchen table. You can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it, right? So the point is that I'm encouraging you, like, I'm trying to appeal to the sense that you're here for a purpose. You're representing us. So if you have no power, we have no power, okay? So again, I just want to reiterate and encourage that you take inventory. Who in your surroundings is trying to limit the scope of your authority, and who is trying to empower you, okay? So we've identified that you get parameters, right, from your legal counsel. He says, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. These are your two options, okay? You can do mask optional, and then you have big quarantine issues, or you can do mask and, so my point is that there is additional legal counsel out there willing to give you advice on what you could do to empower the board. Because if you lose your power, we lose our power as well. This is the pattern. You're the elected representation of us. Same thing, we're seeing this in unions, that they're feeling like they don't have any authority to do anything, and therefore no one can really confront this issue. So again, I'm urging you and taking this very seriously that this is a growing trend, that all these places that are supposed to represent the voice of the community are getting constrained more and more, where they have less and less of a voice. So please take it seriously. This is really utmost for the school district. If the board has no voice, again, I don't know where things go.
Thank you. We're going to move on from the.
I have a very, very quick question,
Yeah.
and it's a legal question that you don't have to answer
No,
now.
just give you come to the mic just so people can hear you.
Hi, I'm Renee, I'm Meeks Lane in Islip. The proposal that was made to seek outside counsel and to join the lawsuit that Massapequa and I forget the other district, Locust Valley are in. If you entertain that, would that be put to a vote to us as a community, whether or not we want to join that lawsuit? Or would the board unilaterally decide? And you don't have to answer that now if you need to consult your...
And like I said, this is investigative right now. I had to, so
I just would like to, as a community member, be able to have a say in that and be able to, not join a lawsuit like that.
Every meeting I come to, I've asked you to do an anonymous poll repeatedly. I want to know what the community wants to do. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe there's more of you that want this. I don't know, but they won't do the poll. So now you didn't ask for a vote? No, I asked for a poll a while ago. And then I asked you, it's like now everybody wants to come and say, we want to see if we can get the poll. And they won't do it. They won't do it because they're afraid of the answer. That's this kind of the is more that want this and not.
all right. So we're going to take a question that's not now mask related. Any questions for the board?
Jason says of 474 Smith Avenue. How you doing, Dr. Ryan? I was looking on the website and trying to get the minutes of the previous board meetings, and this is for the board to answer. The previous two board meetings, there are no minutes up there, so I wasn't able to go back and see kind of what happened at those meetings, and I was just wondering if there was a reason for that.
Our minutes,
What's the timeline?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The draft of the minutes are included on tonight's agenda. You can see them, they're linked within the agenda. And they agenda at the next meeting. Once they're approved, then you would be able to access them.
So it's
just
2
a
weeks.
follow-up
It's-
question.
it's 2 weeks.
Just a follow-up question, is that normal practice? Or is there a time frame that we are supposed to go by to get those board minutes on the website or available to the public in a certain amount of time?
I think,
I'm sorry, Dr. O'Hara, with all due respect, it's a question for the board.
Yeah, it's always been exactly what she said, when they get approved at the next board meeting.
So I
that's-
asked,
So
Mr. Deneen, I
So
asked
it's
a
2
specific
weeks.
question though, specifically, is there a time frame? Is
2 weeks.
So.
Well, if what we're saying is if when they get
10
approved.
days, 14
So when we
days?
approve the minutes, like tonight on the consent agenda, which was 5A, 5B,
Yes,
we approved the board minutes from August 24th and August 31st.
right.
So
It's
now
September 14th.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, it's 2 weeks. So now they'll be on,
can you correct me if I'm wrong?
That's not
But you
2
can, the board approves
Right,
the
is that
minute.
2 weeks?
The board approves the minutes at the subsequent meeting.
right.
So.
So we had 8/24.
Yeah, I understand,
a meeting on
I understand what
31.
you're saying, that the 31st was a
Personnel.
limited agenda, it was personnel only, it was one item on it. So, so this, if you go back and look at all the meetings, this is a typical agenda.
Got it. So
So-
2 weeks is superseded if there's not a meeting within that time?
It's every regular board meeting, following every regular board meeting,
So-
which our board meetings are typically 2 weeks apart. on
Got
Friday.
it. So I'm confused. Is 2 weeks
Really?
an actual
Yes.
thing or is it not?
See, so like we just said,
Is it just
The-
the
the
next
board-
board meeting? Like
the
what if you
minute- the
decide
min-
to
the-
not
the
have a
minute-
board
the
meeting?
minute- the minutes get posted after they get approved. So
Okay,
we
got it.
approved August 24th's meeting minutes. Now they got approved tonight,
Mm,
they'll be uploaded. Because
Right.
the minutes were just approved.
Okay, so
me
it's
try to-
really the next board meeting.
Yes.
It's not 2 weeks.
But
Well,
the board
we
meetings are
were-
typically 2 weeks, every
apart.
2 weeks.
Right. So this time they have to not be.
Because that's
Well,
right, there was one
got
on the
it. Yeah, yeah.
24th, and there's one tonight, and the one on the 31st was one agenda item only.
On personnel, so
Got
there
it.
really is no
And that
minutes.
would be the only reason that they weren't posted earlier. Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Okay. Any other questions?
Allie Simonetti, Cedar Avenue. I just wanted to know if there's any updates on universal pre-K for next year.
Oh, yes. Forgive me, I should have mentioned that much earlier. I had a Zoom meeting this morning with Scope, and they're gonna be doing our UPK program, and we have a target start date of January. I think probably the end of January to align with the second semester of this year. So within the next 2 weeks, there'll be public information about starting the lottery and registration and so on, with an anticipated date of late January, start date.
Linda Hampson, 37 North Ocean. I know the district last year was start off with Teams and now is doing Google Classroom. Where is and I know in the high school they were supposed to stick with Teams, now they're doing both. What's the plan for the secondary going forward with the electronic technology?
Yeah. So, the district, we did adopt Teams last year, and unfortunately, we actually wanted to go Google all the way, really right before COVID happened. But what happened was at that exact time, when we were, when everything was happening so quickly, most of the teachers at that time already had training in the Microsoft platform. So at the same, like literally the perfect wave at the same time COVID's happening, that's happening, we said, listen, you know, we have no choice right now but to stick with Teams for this year. What has happened is, you know, we've been making small adjustments to kind of move towards Google, and And we have found that the Google platform is much more robust in a lot of different areas and a tremendously amount easier for students. The unfortunate side of it is, as you can imagine, to make this adjustment, it comes with some growing pains because you're making an adjustment from one platform everyone knows to an area that that is kind of new for students. If they're, obviously right now with what's going on with us trying to kind of manage different types of scenarios in classrooms, what would have happened if things were going smooth, we would have did a complete, exodus from Microsoft and moved it over to Google. Unfortunately, right now, with the case that some students are being quarantined, there's quarantine situations happening, it was very hard for us to kind of make the adjustment really quickly in that event because there was too much of an upheaval right in the month of September. That's a long-winded answer, I'm sorry. The short version is we will be moving to a Google platform more steadily. Hopefully towards the end of the year, there will be a migration in those places. I can tell you though that nothing's ever perfect. There are areas that Teams works very well in. There are certain things that Microsoft offers that are really nice, that we do like, and there may be a possibility that in some places within our curriculum that we may decide that Teams is a better fit. Because, as an example, let's say you're doing a research course and you're doing a lot of writing and maybe Word is a much more robust program, obviously, than what Google offers. We would want something that fits with that. So that's a very good question. We take that stuff really seriously. We talk all the time about this transition process, and I hope that was kind of an answer a little bit. I'm sorry, there's not an exact date when it's all going to shift, but we're moving it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, hi, can you hear me? I don't have a question, I have a statement, but I want to just say, and I don't even know if I really have the right to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I know most of the people in here, and I feel such a very strong sense of division, but I want to just say, across the board, all of us are here basically for the same reason. So as we're ending, I just want to remind everybody that right now, whatever side we're on, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is that we have the ability to have a voice. And so whether you're sitting over here or you're sitting over here, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that wherever you sit, that eventually your voice will still be heard. And so I think that I speak for the people that I came here with tonight because we're trying to make sure that if down the road, someone who right now is for the mask or whatever side you're on, that if something does come up that you now are against, you have the ability to have a voice against that. And so that is why it's so important that all of us here unite so that we can say, look, this is what's best for me, this is what's best for my kid, and this is what I want to do, and that we have the ability to do it and not want to, shoot your neighbor because they disagree. We've all been living like this in America for so long, and now all of a sudden we're not going to live like that. So I just want to say, everybody here, we really all are on the same side because we all just want to have that voice. So just, and for the people over here that were asking about that seeking second counsel, it's not so that it can shut off the one voice and turn on the other. It's just so that we know definitively where the power lies, and let it go through all the checks and balances and make sure that if those laws come into play, that yes, okay, we will all abide and we will all do it, but let's not just listen to some group that is just putting out the laws. That's not what our country was founded on. So it's not that, and everybody in here that I know, I don't want to walk down the street and be like, oh, I know you were at that meeting and you had a mask on, and now we're divided. It's just so that look, if the next thing that comes up you don't like and I do, then you have the ability to have that voice too, and that's really what this is all about. So I would think
Your message is delivered so respectfully, and I respect you for that. And that's one thing that I think a lot of the message and what you guys are doing, even though we're all here for the kids, the message gets lost when you're disrespectful to the board and to parents around you. I wasn't here, I've seen things virtual, I've heard the stories, I've seen the videos of the words that have been used against the Board of Education, against fellow community members, by people that are in this room. So if everybody has the same goal, then let's just be respectful. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So,
That's exactly what I meant by there's so many people in this community that do believe in what we do, and I've texted so many people to come regardless of
I know.
purpose, just to be respectful. And they don't want to, like, we don't want anything to do with that. There's so many people that don't want to come that are on the other side because it gets to a point where it becomes uncomfortable. And the same thing with you. I've known so many people that have been here forever that at the last meeting were disrespectful to me as well when I smoke, and it's hurtful. And you're right, I don't want that to happen to our community. But when it's come across with a disrespectful way, that's exactly what happens.
right, and so the point is though, is that we, everybody up here, as well as all of us, we're all gonna lose all of our rights. And that's why we're asking the board, please, like, let's go, stand up for us and let's do this. So anyway, I just wanted to bring the unifying part, because we can't have further division. It's already, so that's what I wanted to say.
All right, I think that's it on our public questions. We're going to move on to our reports and correspondence. I don't think we had any. I think everything was exhausted. Yeah. Superintendent's report?
No, I don't have one.
Okay. The school board legislation and finance committee?
Sure. So that's me. Yesterday evening, there was a virtual meeting of the members of the Nassau-Suffolk School Boards Association to discuss the resolutions that are being put forth by the State School Boards Association at the business meeting in October. The objective of these resolutions is to develop policies and advocacy points for the State School Boards Association during the upcoming school year. And at the convention, each board of education that is associated with NYSBA has one voting delegate that participates. I took part in this meeting not as Islip's delegate, but as the chair of the legislation committee for the Nassau-Suffolk School Boards Association. The first part of the meeting was that all of the recommended resolutions that were recommended by the state's resolutions committee were recommended by the committee, and all of those that were not recommended to be adopted. The other component of that meeting last night was to just share updates related to legislative advocacy, whether that's the state or the federal level. So I'm just going to hit upon some of the topics that were discussed. Throughout the summer, the association participated in summer congressional representative meetings that included with Congressman Swazi of Nassau County, Congressman Meeks of Queens, and Congressman Garbarino of Suffolk County, who is our congressional representative. The main objective of these meetings and the main focal point of the topic related to Long Island was the SALT deduction and making sure that the SALT deduction is fully restored, because there is a great challenge for the middle class families related to that legislation that was passed a few years ago. Another topic that was discussed that many school board members and superintendents are looking for is federal funding should districts have newly enrolled immigrant students who are unaccompanied. Considering the geopolitical landscape and climate currently over in the Middle East, we are seeing a number of students coming to the United States, and the association is advocating, one, for increased funding for school districts should we have to oblige by the obligation to educate those students, and also advance notice from Homeland Security to ensure that districts are equipped to handle the increases in student enrollment should that take place. So the key question was how are districts preparing for the school year given the geopolitical landscape currently. The next topic that was discussed was the U.S. Census and the impact that's now going to have on the development of congressional districts here in New York. As a result of the appropriation of seats compared to the population changes in New York, it seems that the state will likely lose one congressional representative upstate, so that really doesn't seem to be impacting Long Island too much. The only other thing that we should be concerned about would be the funding that's now going to be allocated to districts based upon the census data. Last but not least, they did also share SED's work in promoting diversity, inclusivity, and equity within our school districts. So that was shared with the members of the school board, what information NICE is bringing down to us. And last but not least, they bittersweetly announced that Dr. Julie Lutz, who is the CEO of Eastern Suffolk BOCES, is retiring at the end of this school year. So overall, it was a very productive meeting, and the next meeting is of the association's executive committee towards the end of this month.
Okay, and you're going to roll right into PTA. We have two board members that aren't here. Mrs. Regacki is not feeling well, and Mrs. Floor is recovering from COVID. So that's why they're not here this evening, and I know you're going to take over for the PTA.
Yep, so on behalf of Ms. Regacki, who typically shares the PTA updates, I'm not going to go through everything that she had shared. I will share it with the district clerk, so it's included in the minutes that will be approved at the next board meeting. Overall, there is just information related to the virtual Meet the Teachers that are taking place, some fundraising opportunities that are taking place. They did share, which was really awesome, in the beginning of the summer, Ms. James, the new principal of Sherwood, had done a pizzeria night at our local establishment, so they did share the success of that. In addition to back-to-school breakfasts for staffs that are being provided by the PTAs, and as I said, just additional when upcoming meetings are and when upcoming fundraisers are. So like I shared, I'll get that to the district clerk, so all that information is provided to the community.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Kareem. Okay, that's it on our reports and correspondence. There's no non-resolution topics. It's going to move on to dates to remember. School will be closed on September 16th for Yom Kippur, for those who celebrate and enjoy the holiday. Our next Board of Ed meeting will be on September 29th, executive session at 6:30 with public session to begin at 7:30 p.m. and it will be here in the middle school auditorium. We're not in the high school because there's plays going on, so that venue and all the space and all the props and everything that's out is stopping us from being in there right now. So we'll be here in the middle school library. Okay, with that, I'd like to get a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
That was Mr. Clarine, and the second was Mr. Leggio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone, and get home safe.